that these symbols meant something good in the past, and all these bad guys use it for something bad, and so he wants to rectify, he wants to bring life back to him. So now he's using these Luciferian and Masonic symbols for that purpose. That was his explanation.
And it's so typical. It's so typical.
I think there's no need for symbols. I mean, I think there's,
but let's say you do.
A logo, you can do a design. Even on his art, because he has art on his webpage, it's very Masonic. I mean, you'll catch the Eye of Providence, you'll catch pyramids, you'll catch everything.
Hey guys, Cullen Smith here. Welcome back to Lifting the Veil.
And so this descending passageway nourishes the body. Look at how it directly corresponds with the hyoid bone, directly joining to the hyoid bone at the exact precise location, which would be the vocal cords, which would be the speech, the voice, the sound resonance, where you have the sound, smell, sight, hearing here at the Queen's Chamber, the location, exact location of the ventral cochlear nucleus, which is exactly the hearing, located right here at the Queen's Chamber at the temporal lobe. You've got the cognitive functions at the King's Chamber, and then you've got the higher mind, the higher cognitive functions of the cerebrum, of the corona radiata, directly corresponding all of this. And so let's go even deeper and even further. So let's notice the exact correspondence of basically the slope angle of the escape shaft of the descending passageway, directly corresponding to the slope angle. You've got the human jaw sloping up, spiraling around, directly corresponding to the logarithmic spiral, directly corresponding. And so let me show you the human skull here. And so notice this here, the exact spiral directly corresponding to the spiral of the human skull, directly corresponding. So notice this spiral yet again. Let me show you this again. The direct angle of the spiral, notice how it ascends. It directly corresponds to the sharp angle of the Grand Gallery. The entrance of the Grand Gallery directly corresponds to that sharp angle coming from the bottom angle of the jaw, up past the jaw and up, directly corresponding, which exactly corresponds to the exact location of the zygomatic bone, which is the cheekbone. Notice this. Check this out. So again, notice the exact prominence of the zygomatic bone corresponding exactly right there past the orbit, which is the eye socket, directly corresponding to not only the logarithmic spiral, but also directly corresponding to that entrance of that sharp angle and the entrance to the Grand Gallery. Check this out. Okay, so check this out. Notice the exact correspondences between the hyoid bone down at the throat, at the vocal shot, down at the throat, between the Grand Gallery and the zygomatic bone right here at the sharp angle of the Grand Gallery, the slope, which directly corresponds to the facial veins, directly corresponding to that descending escape shaft of the descending passageway, directly corresponding to the cardiovascular system of the facial veins, directly passing down. Check that out. Look at how it almost exactly corresponds to the location and the slope angle of that descending passageway, the facial veins. And then directly corresponding with the temporal bone, yet again, check this out. And then the exact location, again, of the superficial temporal vein, directly corresponding, Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber, corona radiata with the air shafts, directly. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. It's absolutely astounding.
where the direct midline of the human brain is actually directly next that point here, directly where the optic chiasm crosses, at the crux of the optic nerves of the brain, whereas the pineal gland sits just offset in the golden proportion towards the back of the brain, which is exactly where the egg yolk, or the central sun within the golden ratio egg, where the egg yolk sits inside the egg geometry, is exactly where the golden egg yolk, the golden sun of the pineal gland, sits directly as the egg yolk inside the golden ratio egg, as we covered in Symbols of Power Part 3. And so again, the entire internal structure and the optic nerve relay is following the flux, or following the flow, or the vector of a standing harmonic wave, performing that lemniscus, or that figure 8 shape. So I want to show this beautiful imagery created by Neurodome, and the amazing thing about diffusion tensor imaging is that it is able to detect the diffusion of water. So what's amazing about it is the different colors correspond to the different directions that each set of fibers or paths are running. So the green is actually from front to back, and the imaging pathways only run in one direction. The diffusion path of water only runs one direction, and so you're seeing the unidirectional flow. The red pathways run laterally from side to side, and the purple pathway runs from top to bottom, or from bottom to top, runs up and down. And so what makes this so useful is that when there's an injury, it actually blocks the flow of diffusion, and so you can easily observe the diffusion pathways, and you can tell where there's been an injury, or where there is damage done from either lesions, tumors, aneurysms, things of that nature. And so this force that creates this standing wave formation, or this bipole, this dual toroidal dynamic that is found throughout all of nature, and of course it only occurs around electrical filaments, which run on a universal scale, generated in plasma by electricity. These electromagnetic effects, either they tighten, it constricts, and it coils, which is the essence of the Hindu meaning of kundal, meaning constriction, meaning strangling or coiling. Again, as I covered in Symbols of Power Part 2 and Part 3, is the very meaning of the perineal muscles, of the anal sphincter of the perineal muscles. Literally means is a constricting, a contracting, a constriction, which is an electric force of charge, which is, it creates strength. It's a force of electromagnetism that creates charge, which creates force and power, which is, it creates contraction, which is how all of biology functions. Electrical biology functions through musculature, is through the constriction and the contraction, which generates power. So the greater electric force, the greater electric charge, the greater constricting power, the greater implosive force can be generated. The plasma Z-pinches are of special interest to the electric universe theory, especially those with the natural result of pairs of Birkeland currents interacting with themselves. In other words, these standing motion waves. And of course, this is the structure that creates the entire physiology of the human brain. It's the structure that creates so many forces also throughout nature. It's literally the hyperboloid, which, as we covered back in the previous films, we covered the various aspects of the toroidal dynamic of the brain, and we'll cover this much deeper in future films as well. But so this is the toroid, the very heart, the very core of the toroid itself is the Z-pinch, is the hyperboloid. It's literally the Holy Grail, as literally depicted in Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. The correct Holy Grail was the one with the Z-pinch, which is the very same shape as it's of the rocket fuel, the rocket nozzle, which is the very same essence that creates the X chromosome of the human, of the male. All right, guys, I'm terribly sorry, but that we are out of time. That's all the time that we have for this segment of the film. So we will split this up and continue it in the next video. So click the link in the description below, or the box at the top of the corner at the end of this video to click on into the next segment of this video portion. But I've had to limit it to, by popular request, to specifically time limits. So yeah, thank you. That's literally what, so that's what it all means. That's what it all comes from. And I'm sorry I didn't want to make this too long. I wanted to make this a short video, but like as always, you cannot scathe the surface of this stuff. And as always, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch my videos. If you enjoy this information, please share it around with anyone who you think might also appreciate the information. It's my greatest passion and my purpose and my mission is to continue to produce genuinely inspired and meaningful, uplifting content, intellectual pieces of art.
We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of just how much info is ready and waiting to be produced. I can't even keep up with the amount of output, let alone the amount of writing that is coming through. We haven't even gotten started yet. We are just warming up.
And so we just need to take care of this business, guys. If I can meet my second minimum goal, I will never have to ask or beg for funding ever again. So I want to get to that point where I never have to ask you ever again, because I hate doing it, honestly. I really do. So I hope I never have to ask again by reaching these minimum goals. Because as it stands right now, I am not able to do this full time. I simply am not making enough to pay off the amount of effort that goes into these. So I can't practically do it right now. So we have to meet these minimum goals. Otherwise, I can't do this. Please help me continue in this mission. And check out the merch in the links below. Help support my channel that way, or support my channel on patreon.com/liftingtheveil. Links in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next video. So there is so much more content coming up. First in the lineup is this 6-hour film that I'm going to divide up about the New World Order agenda and the truth about veganism. It will be a part 2 of my other viral film that went out, so the truth about veganism. So stay tuned for that next. It's almost finished. I'm just polishing up. I want to make sure I cover all the details, so it's very in-depth, and that way there's no confusion to leave you hanging. So look for that next.